Daniel. What's going on, man?
I'm doing good. I'm just checking out my levels here. Make sure that's good.
We got a great picture, man. Steve and I, man. I was like, this sucks, dude. You got to call me back on FaceTime because I couldn't see him at all. So we got a really good signal.
Oh, good. Yeah, this is actually really clear. Look at my do. Thank God when I'm not doing video on this. My do's incredible right now.
How's mine?
Well, I can't get any better. Look at this thing.
Yeah.
All right, so this is this is Real Singers on Singing podcast number 8, I believe. This is cool. I believe it is number 8. And we're with Craig Sirianni. And what's that background? Is it Italian? What is that?
It is indeed on both sides.
Both sides? And which part? Sicilian or?
Sicilian on my mother's side, Calabrese on my father's side.
I'm Sicilian on my father's side. My mother is French.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Salud.
Salud. Yeah, what do you got there?
That would be tequila. Oops.
That's what I usually drink. I was going to pull it out. I was like, you know what? I got this new beer the other day, and I was like, I'll give it a try. I'm not even a beer drinker, but I'm like, I'll give it a try. But
Belgian is probably pretty high in alcohol content.
Yeah, this is nice. It's a nice beer. So dude, I'm so glad that Steve sent me that message, and like today was like the perfect day because I woke up saying I really want to do a podcast, you know. So
well, I'll tell you what, he told me all about you. He told me about what you do, you know, and I have to confess my ignorance. I hadn't seen any of your podcasts before, but, you know, Steve Crater, he told me, you know, all about what you do and suggested that this would probably be a good idea for you and I to talk and that we'd have a lot in common. I was like, yeah, I'm down. You know, I'd love to get in touch. And so when you called, I knew exactly why you were calling, and
that's cool.
I spent a lot of time in California. I loved it. I sang a lot of seasons at the Chandler Pavilion, back in the opera days. So and you know, considering where I teach now, I miss it every day because I'm in the Arctic zone.
Yeah.
From hell. I mean, listen. In the North Country, there's no harder winter ever, I don't think. So it's finally warming up. I finally got on the Harley. The past 2 days, I actually got the bike out, but now we got 3 days of rain, so it's getting cold. It's getting cold again.
Yeah, I'm from Connecticut, and I don't miss it.
Dude, listen, I don't blame you a bit.
I don't miss it. As a matter of fact, I have a gig coming up in like June where it's in Connecticut, and I usually would stay. It's rare that I get a corporate gig in Hartford, and I got to get a corporate gig in Hartford, but I got to fly right out where afterwards fly somewhere else. But I kind of don't mind because, like, yeah, I don't miss Connecticut much. The weather, because probably then it's just going to be super humid and sticky, and you know, you never get a break there. You get like a 2-week break a year, you know.
It's really true.
It's tough, and you're in Watertown, is that right? Is that where it is?
Watertown, New York. So I am about 25 minutes from the Canadian border.
Way up, yeah.
About 20 minutes from the Thousand Islands, which is beautiful in the summertime.
Right.
In fact, this whole area is gorgeous in the summertime. It's just, you know, the winters are they're brutal, man. And, you know, I don't tell you.
Especially brutal. This year. This year went really long, right? You guys got hammered like last week.
Ice storms, snow, still in April. So anyway, listen, I came back here of my own accord. That's another story. But I mean, at 31 years in Manhattan, nice. as an opera singer, and then teaching, and then, you know, finally decided to. I wanted to come back to this area and open this studio because, well, for a number of reasons. I mean, I remember being an opera singer right out of college and not really knowing what my next move was going to be. So when I decided to wind the opera singing down after 16 years of being on stage, I wanted to do two things: to go back to where, what's left of my family, where my family still lives, which is here because I grew up here. I went through the school system here, left after high school to Fredonia, where I got my degrees, and then from there right to Manhattan. So I wanted to come back here and set up a studio because I knew that, to be quite frank, I mean, I knew that there wasn't anybody in this area that could claim not only 16-year career on stage, but the degree background's a little bit different. It's in applied voice. It's not musical. It's not music ed. I don't teach chorus. It's not that kind of thing. And I wanted to be the go-to guy in this area. And that's kind of how it's worked out. It's a little bit isolated, and I'm still always got my eye on maybe moving out and branching out, moving out of this area, but we'll see what happens. And
so, I mean, getting right to that. So, how did you? I watched your videos because I just heard about you today, and I was like, oh, I gotta find out about him now. And you're singing Iron Maiden, you're singing Queensryche, and your opera stuff is phenomenal. And how did it all start? Like, what was the beginning of it?
Well, the beginning was, probably back in the 70s when I wasn't old enough to have my own, vinyl collection and my own, turntable. But my sister, who is about 2 years older than me, had a collection. And so that's what I went for. And lo and behold, what I found in her collection was, and I didn't know it at the time, I just played it because it was there, but what she had was Black Sabbath, and she had Ian Gillan, Deep Purple, Jethro Tull. I mean, all of that I didn't know were the giants and would be the giants of that kind of industry.
Right.
I mean, all the way back to that very first Black Sabbath album, just called Black Sabbath.
Right.
Where there's Ozzy singing, what is this that stands before me? Right?
Yeah.
A kid, I'm listening to this stuff going, whoa, this is awesome. So, like most people in the United States, I gravitated toward what I first got exposed to, and that's what my first exposure was. It was the roots of, real metal back in the day, and I was listening to the giants. I just didn't know it back then, and I loved that. I loved that sound. So I was always musically drawn, even as a very young person. But that's how it started with me, and that branched off into an interest in. The reason I went to Fredonia was because it was one of the two schools in the country. I believe, if I remember correctly, Miami might have been the other one. I can't remember. I think it was one of the two schools in the country that taught a Bachelor of Science degree in sound recording technology. Well, Fredonia was the other one. And I couldn't decide if, because I was very mechanically, I'm still, an audiophile nut. I mean, if we're doing audio only today, then, your viewers can't see this, but, right behind me, I mean, this is what I listen to for a stereo.
Yeah, I was noticing that.
It's like a hand-built vacuum tube amplifier, right, that I had put together to my spec, right? So, I'm like all about the gear, and I'm thinking, well, sound recording technology, that might be the way to go. But I wasn't sure. But that's what led me to Fredonia in the first place. Now, once I got there, they're like, okay, well, in order to be a sound recording major, you got to be a music major also at the same time. And I did not have the chops on the piano, still don't, to be a piano major.
Right.
So I'm thinking, what can I do? And the honest to God truth is, I went to one of the music faculty there, a very nice woman, and I said, look, I want to audition for, I could sing. I said, I was singing in rock bands. I jumped ahead, I guess, of myself a little bit, but after the early days of listening to those albums, I started all kinds of, my own garage band. So this was all through junior high and high school. There was always a band, whether it was, Air Raid or, whatever. They were all local bands, and I was always in somebody's garage, including my own, playing, practicing until the police showed up. And they always did. That led me into, I became first I was a drummer, then I picked up a guitar, I had a 7-foot Marshall stack and, all that kind of stuff. Played for a lot of years. Then went to Fredonia and was trying to figure out which direction I wanted to go. So I got to Fredonia and I actually got in under a communications major. Because I wasn't a music major at the time, and a very nice lady set me up there and said, listen, if you want to audition for the music department, which you have to do if you want to be in the sound recording department, if you can sing, here's 2 pieces, take them to the library, get a recording, go home, listen to them, and come back and audition for the voice faculty. And I'm like, okay, now, I got hair down, halfway down my back.
Yep.
I had big earrings hang out of my, ear, a big leather jacket on, a Harley Davidson, right? And I'm in the library taking out, asking the librarian, listen, help me out. I got these 2 pieces, Cado Mio Ben was one of them, and there was a Handel piece, Where You Walk. And I'm like, I'm lost, help me out. So the guy pulls me a recording of Luciano Pavarotti. So I go home, I go back, I'm listening to it, I'm working it out, I go stand in front of the voice faculty. I don't know a damn thing about what I'm doing, okay, but I'm mimicking what I hear. And I think the song was Caro Mio Ben, I don't know. When I got high enough, I went, C'è sacro del santo rigor. And the faculty went.
How did he know to cover through there like that?
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
That was, and you're very smart, because that was the first thing they said. They were like, you do things with your voice that's
not natural.
It's very difficult to teach somebody how to do that doesn't understand how to do that. And you covered your voice through the passaggio. Are you interested in being a voice major? Now, my answer was, in my head, well, let's see, voice major, that'll get me into sound recording. I'm like, yeah, I'm in. That's great. The whole while not really caring about being a voice major, because I wanted the sound recording department. They only took 4 people a year into that program. It was very elite, and we're out there, recording and mixing on, Amperex, these Ampex tape machines that look like a washer and dryer, right?
Yep.
It was all analog.
Yeah.
Thank God I didn't stay in that direction, because, recording studios are, you probably have one in your house right now, and it's all on your computer. So, but inadvertently, it led me into a voice teacher at the time, who then turned me on to opera, and then we started working. And he was his name was Frank Polano, Dr. Frank Polano. He was the one who introduced me to all the things that I didn't know. I wouldn't say that the education that I got there, vocally speaking, was, in other words, when I left Fredonia, it wasn't with a voice that was of international value. That didn't happen until I got to Manhattan. But I'll never regret the training as far as being introduced to the repertoire, taking conducting, composition, music history every morning.
Wow.
Hangover, 8 a.m., music history, right? I'm like, oh God, don't call on me, please, right? But so anyway, and while I was a music major at Fredonia, I was moonlighting as a heavy metal singer, frontman for a band called Predator. And we played, because Fredonia is, really close to Buffalo. This was back when Buffalo was, replete with huge venues that heavy metal bands in the 80s could show up and play for. We had hundreds of people. Yeah, hundreds of people showing up. Yep. And the lineup, and these guys, the guys in Predator were like, when I went to audition for them, I think I sang Quiet Riot, Come On Feel the Noise, right? And these guys were like, I met them at a Battle of the Bands. We were all standing around one day, and they walked over me because I looked like a rocker. I had real long hair, and they were like, hey, what's the story with you? And I'm like, well, I don't have a band. They're like, what do you do? I said, well, I sing. And they said, well, we got a whole band set up. We don't have a singer. Come on over. And these were the guys that introduced me to all the bands that up until this point I didn't know. And believe it or not, I had never been introduced at this point until the guys in Predator introduced me to who was Ronnie James Dio, right? I still bow down when I say his name, right? Bruce Dickinson, from Iron Maiden. Obviously Rob Halford from Judas Priest, who people still mistake me for. Well, when Rob was a little bit younger, he kind of looked like it. Oh, yes. All of us rockers end up looking like this when we get to be age, right? Jeff Tate, Halford, bald head, the goatee, right?
Yeah, that's funny.
Anyway, and there I got a real education in heavy metal, and I was a front man for a band called Predator. And I was doing that at night, screaming, ripping it up 3 hours at a time, and then going in. So the people of Fredonia didn't really know what to make of me because every month or 2 months we'd have these vocal area recitals where I'd show up, and I'd show up with my Harley jacket on and big long hair and big that was the day of the big spike gauntlets and mascara and stuff, right? And I'm standing in front of, and I think I was the only straight guy in the entire
right.
The only straight tenor in the entire vocal faculty, and no one knew what to make of me. I'm standing there, and I'm singing. I walk out, and they don't know what to make of me, and they're looking at me, and all of a sudden I walk out and I go, Una furtiva grima. And they're like, okay, this guy is a heavy metal singer. He's singing all this other stuff. We're all confused. We don't know what the hell he's doing. And frankly, I didn't either. I had no idea. And then I got my first opera gig. My teacher hooked me up with a local orchestra there. It was the Erie Chamber Orchestra, and they were doing a couple of operas. So they heard me sing. I went and I auditioned for them, and they hired me. First opera was, La Boheme. Second opera was Carmen. And even before then, the Erie Chamber Orchestra hired me for 15 minutes of The Merry Widow. Now, I didn't even know The Merry Widow, but I'm like, all right, give me the music. I learned it. Okay, so here I am still on campus. I get picked up in a limousine. I'm in a tux. I sing 15 minutes maybe worth of music. I get paid an embarrassing amount of money for 15 minutes of music. And I'm thinking, all right, hang on.
What am I doing here? $100 in beer, or
it's like this. So splitting $200 8 ways and screaming for 3.
for 3-4 hours, right?
And I'm sure we'll get to this at some point, but keep in mind that vocal technique back then for me in heavy metal, like most young guys, was nothing but youth and testosterone. Yeah. That was the extent of my understanding of vocal technique for heavy metal. So what I imitated as best I could what I heard these guys doing, thinking I knew what they were doing, and that's really what it boiled down to. When I did the calculation, the next day I called all the guys in Predator. I'm like, listen, I'm going to become an opera singer, and of course they're all like, yeah, okay, I don't know what you're drinking or what you're smoking, but you know what? We'll talk again tomorrow. I go, no, really, it's really true. I'm quitting the band. I'm going to become an opera singer, and that's pretty much the way it went. I went that direction. I continued with my teacher there, but like I said, because it was hard to do both at the same time. After a while, staying out all night long, coming back from Buffalo from gigs at 4 or 5 in the morning, trying to, work with my teacher, eventually, it gets a little schizophrenic. So, but yeah, eventually I left there. I graduated from Fredonia with my bachelor, three degrees. The one that I use now is my Bachelor of Arts degree, which is in applied voice. And sat down and talked to my parents, and I said, listen, I don't know where to go. I don't know who to study with. I don't know what to do. I want to be an opera singer, but I have no idea what my next move is. And that's when, my mother piped up and said, listen, you need to go, where the winners are, and we're sitting there that night and we were watching, I think, a Richard Tucker award TV. And that was the first time I saw Jerry Hadley sing on television. And I almost fell off the couch because this guy's singing the duet from the Pearl Fishers, and he's using this technique that I had never seen before. This guy's, his larynx is down, his jaw is all the way down, his teeth are out, and he's ripping these B flats like you can't believe it. I'm going, oh my God, listen to this guy. And that's when my mother piped in and said, listen, you got to find out who's training these guys. Go to New York and start asking questions. I'm like, what am I going to do, Mom? Give the guy a call on the telephone? She's like, yeah. That's exactly what you do. What's the worst going to happen? He's going to hang up on you. So what? I don't know how she did it, but she found his number. I gave him a call. He couldn't have been more. He couldn't have been more gracious about accepting the phone call of some young singer somewhere out in, Watertown, New York. He loved the fact that I loved his performance on the Tucker Gala because Tucker Gala's at the Metropolitan Opera. I told him I read all about him in Opera News, and in Opera News he had mentioned his teacher, Thomas LaMonaco. And so that was my introduction. Jerry said, listen, I'll do you one further. He said, not only will I give you Tommy's number, I said, but, I'll make an introduction. I'll let him know when you're coming to New York. And I told him, I said, I could be there, whenever. He said, all right, I'll call Tommy. I'll let him know you're coming. So I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe he actually even answered the phone, and I woke him up. So I felt even more horrible, but he couldn't have been more gracious. He was a wonderful guy. He made the introduction for me. So when I got to New York, I called Tommy, and he said, oh, yeah, you're the young man that Jerry Hadley was telling me about. And, I'm in New York. I just got there. I'm working with some friends at a video store that's no longer there, but I literally showed up from Watertown with my little suitcase, got off at Port Authority. Never been to Manhattan before. Did the first thing everyone does. I looked up at all the buildings, went, oh my God. And then looked at all the people and went, oh my God. And then I walked right down to Times Square and went right to work that day because the video store I worked at, now this was video back then, this is what we sold, was on Broadway and 43rd Street.
All right,
so
there.
I was right in the heart of it.
Yeah.
Okay, I went right to work. I can remember when Star Wars first came out on video, we sold it for $89.95 on VHS. That's what we did. We did it all day. Wow. And that's where I started working. So I called Tommy from work, and I'm thinking, okay, this guy's got the, and so I'm going to the Met and I'm watching performances and I'm seeing all these tenors, Jerry Hadley, Neil Wilson, Keith Olsen, they're all tearing it up at the Met, and I'm like, and I keep asking, who's training these guys? Same name kept coming up, Tom LaMonaco. I'm like, who? Tom LaMonaco. This is the guy I read about in Opera News that Jerry told me about. So I called Tommy, the biggest teacher in New York, the biggest tenor trainer in New York. I'm thinking, if he even takes my call, maybe he'll see me in like 3 months. And he's like, oh, yeah, you're the guy that Jerry told me was going to call. I said, yeah, that's me. I'd love to come and sing for you. I'd love to, see what you think. I'd love to be part of the studio. And he says, and I'm at work, and he goes, great. He says to me, why don't you come over at how's 3 o'clock? And I'm like, I did like a Ralph Cramden. I'm like, I couldn't even talk. I was like, 3 o'clock? What, today? So I went over. I sang a horrible horribly terrified rendition of Que Jelly de Manina, first act aria from La Boheme. He go, what do you want to sing, lad? He called everybody lad. I said, all right, I want to sing the first act aria from La Boheme. He goes, all right, go ahead, whenever you're ready. Then I went, Que Jelly de Manina. I did. That's what I sang. Because that's what I thought I heard on the album. It was real musical. It was real pretty. It was about this big. And Tom, first thing I saw him do was lean forward. I was like, oh God, he can't hear me over the piano. I'm getting out of here. I'm going back to Watertown. That's it. I'm done. I'm over. And Tommy was like, listen, you're one of the most musical guys that's ever come to sing for me. He goes, your interpretation was beautiful. Your use of the phrasing was beautiful. Your voice is horribly underdeveloped. And I went, wait. First he was, complimenting me, and then he slid that one in. I'm like, underdeveloped? What do you mean? I don't understand. And I really didn't. I had no concept. And this will never come through, over a Skype interview, but Tom took me over. He said, come over here. And Tom, now remember, Tom was about 60, I don't know, late 60s by this point. He says, do me a favor, imitate me. He goes up the piano, plays a G, and he goes like this. Make this sound for me, okay? And he's 2 feet from my face. And he goes like this. Make this sound for me. He goes, goes, do that for me. I went, no, that's not possible. And I had images of blood spray pattern on the walls and my cords flying out of my throat. And he goes, come on, lad, make that sound. And this went on for like an hour. And, obviously I couldn't make the sound, but I did the best I could. And that was my introduction to Tom. He's like, listen, you want to sing for 2,000 people, 3,000 people, whatever? He says, no microphone. You need to, you want to train like all the guys you go to the opera right now to see? This is how we do it. And within 6 months, I'm seeing Jerry Hadley now, the guy who gave me the introduction, these guys who I'm idolizing on TV, coming out when I'm walking in and walking in when I'm going out. And I'm in there working with Tom, taking lessons, and he goes, hey, who's waiting for a lesson after you? Jerry Hadley's here. And then he goes, Jerry, come on in here. I want you to hear this kid. And he gets Jerry to come into the studio. He goes, you remember this guy? This is the guy that you brought in from Watertown. And Jerry was like, yeah. And all of a sudden Tom's like, sing here, lad. And he wants me to sing I'll sing like a phrase from Aida or something to high B flat or whatever. And then suddenly Jerry and I are going out to lunch.
Wow.
I'm meeting all these people. And that's basically the story. Tommy kept me in the studio for about 5 years.
Wow.
Wouldn't let me sing. I never sang a note at home. Didn't sing in between. I worked at this video store 65 hours a week to be able to afford 3 lessons a week with Tom. And that was my life. That's all I did. I said, Tom, I don't really have anything else, to be honest. I'm good at a lot of things, but not great. So I'm not leaving until you make me a world-class opera singer. So basically I gave him a blank canvas.
It's funny you say that, you say that he wouldn't let you sing outside of the studio. And I heard the same thing, stories about Pola was the same way. He would say, when you studied with Pola in Italy, he would tell the students, sing here, don't sing outside the studio, come back tomorrow. They'd be shorter lessons, but you'd be with him every day, kind of a thing.
Yeah, well, the whole idea was, if you're going to work with Tom and do something that's completely foreign from anything you understand, if you go home and try and do that on your own, chances are you're going to unwind all the work that you just did a day ago. You
want to create that perfect muscle memory. And that was what you were able to do. That's amazing, because that's rare, man. I mean, take it from someone who studied with everybody under the sun, but I could never I sung for a living, gig-wise. That's how I made my living, and across the country, corporate bands and stuff like that. So I was taking from people, but I would practice the lessons every day, no matter what. I put in the tape, go through my lessons, but then I go sing a gig, and of course I'm unraveling everything from maybe, but it was that kind of a thing, you know what I mean? And having that opportunity to be able to just go, he makes it perfect for you every day. That's a really cool thing, man.
That's exactly right. And, so you hit the nail on the head. You understand this concept perfectly. And it's so hard to explain, especially, well, it was hard for me to swallow, and I was in my 20s.
You want to sing. You want to get out of there.
Yeah. And after 4 or 5 years, you're watching guys walk in doing auditions now. And I'm like, Tom, come on, I can smoke these guys. Let me out. And Tommy always did the same thing. He was like, listen, he says, do you want short-term gratification or do you want long-term success? He goes, you have to make up your mind, lad. So it was like a Yoda moment, like Star Wars, like Karate Kid kind of moment. I'm like, okay, God. And by the 5th year, it almost killed me because, I wanted to get out there. And finally, when he let me go coach, I went to Josh Green, who was and still is, if I'm not mistaken, one of the biggest coaches in Manhattan. I believe he works, as music preparation at the Metropolitan Opera now, if I'm not mistaken. It's been a while since I've seen him. And I took my first score over, I believe it was Madame Butterfly, and, we began to coach. A lot of things, there's another thing a lot of people don't understand, the difference between a teacher, a vocal instructor, and a coach. A coach is music preparation only. He doesn't mess with your technique, but he will tell you if you're singing a wrong note value, screwed up the Italian, whatever. That's what he was there for. But when Tom let me out finally to do my audition, my first audition, it was for Ken Benson, who was the vice president of Columbia Artist Management, who was the biggest agency in New York. And Ken was the VP of the agency, and I sang for him. And, this was after 5 years of working with Tom. So when I finished, Ken was like, okay, we'll be sending you to Europe within about a month or two. And, blah, 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 blah. And I'm still standing up there, stunned and starstruck, and, all, the way you get when you're done singing an audition, you're nervous, you're distracted. And I'm like, wait a minute. Does that mean I'm in? I literally had to ask him. I was so green. He was like, yes, I'm signing you. You're in. So I got signed to Columbia Artists right away. And, right after that, was off to Europe, and that led to, about 16 years, give or take, of stage work of, North and South America, Asia, and of course all over Europe.
What's your favorite house to sing in? One of, I guess.
Honestly, to be honest, it was the New York State Theater, which is not New York City Opera anymore.
Okay.
That was one of my favorites. That and the Chandler Pavilion. Those two. I did. I can't explain it. A lot of people hated the way the State Theater sounded in New York, but I liked it. I got a lot back from that theater. The scariest theater was La Scala.
That's isn't that like again, I'm very small understanding the whole opera world. I'm trying to come into it and I'm loving it, but.
And I'm sorry if I'm going off on opera tangent.
That's what I want. That's kind of what I want. I don't know if my listeners, but that's what I'm really interested in. So I've been in the rock world forever, so it's not, to me, I'm like, okay, it's cool, but it more excites me when I hear someone say like if you were to say, oh, I like singing at the Bellini Theater in Catania, or, I like singing at, like La Scala. And to me, like when someone says La Scala, after everything I've read, I see that name pop up as like one of the like premieres, right? That's like the big one.
Well, La Scala, as far as opera goes, it's probably the
pinnacle.
Think about it. Everybody, including Caruso, walked out from Caruso forward, walked out on the stage. Every tenor that we know walked out on that stage and sang, from Caruso to Gigli to Delmonico, Corelli. Keep going down the list, and they all sang there. and I'm walking out, the reason that I didn't enjoy it as much is I wasn't used to the European acoustic. See, in the States, we really don't have. We've got a handful of dedicated opera houses, like Chicago Lyric, obviously the Metropolitan Opera. I mean, these are dedicated opera houses.
Right.
That's not the same thing, but most of the regional houses you sing in are these multi-function places that are used for, the opera, the ballet, and the symphony.
Yeah.
So acoustically, they're not necessarily the same, and size-wise, they're way bigger. So when I went to Europe, and started singing all these opera houses like around Nice and in Germany, I mean, the houses are like, maybe 800 seats.
Yeah.
And the first box, I could reach up, and if the first person reached down, I mean, I could touch their hand. That's how close they were.
Yeah. The first one I ever got to be in was the one in Madrid. I saw La Boheme in Madrid, and that was like, when I walked in, I was like, I'd been into the one in Palermo and the one in Catania, as I went on my honeymoon there, and so we went in there, but it wasn't opera season, so they just took us through a tour, so I didn't really get to see. But when I walked in that one, and everybody was in it, and then in Madrid, and it was it was cool. It was La Boheme, and then from there I went to the really crazy one in Valencia, that crazy looking thing. Did you ever see that one?
Yeah, I've never been there, but I've seen photographs.
Yeah, it looks like a Star Wars helmet.
Yeah.
It's crazy looking.
So the Scala is like a giant horseshoe. So it's not deep from front to back, but once you get to the back, it goes straight up. It's like nothing you've ever seen before. I walked out on stage and went, oh my God! It just goes straight up. Now here's the thing about Scala. When you're there singing, okay, what horrified me was that I got nothing back, nothing. So I was doing Man of Butterfly. So I walked out and went, the first thing you heard, da 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 da, and I walked out and to me sounded like, I got nothing. It was like singing into a pillow, and so you immediately panic.
That's the worst.
You're like, oh my God. And of course you got to fight the urge to push because you figure, well, I better sing louder, and which is a horrible mistake. You sing with, the voice you sing with. You don't change it for anything.
Yep.
Now, here's the reverse. When you sit in the audience, however, I never heard a better acoustic and a more detailed overall opera acoustic than when I was in the audience at Scala watching cast number 2 singing. So that's why that house was built that way. But it wasn't as comfortable for me. I like hearing something come back.
Yeah.
So the Chandler Pavilion, Costa Mesa, which was called Opera Pacific. I don't know if it still is, but
God, I don't even know if that's still there.
Yeah, I don't either. I sang there a lot. Anyway, blah blah blah. So the whole idea is I had the opportunity to see the world, which I would not have had the opportunity, had I not become an opera singer. And that's all I did for a living, and I did it for as longer than a lot of people that I know. I consider myself incredibly fortunate. I have no regrets about that time whatsoever. But then things begin to change. Family, kids start coming. You start thinking. It becomes almost narcotic out there. I mean, you're loath to turn down any gigs because they're coming in. And back when I was singing, now all my opera friends now call when I was singing. Wow, you were lucky, man. That was like the really cool age of opera because I was coming back from places like Brussels and Rio de Janeiro with like $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 in cash.
Yeah.
On my back. I was the guy that were always pulling off the line in customs going, hey, because I had to fill out that card on the airplane, and I filled it out because I was not about to, get that money confiscated if I didn't pull it out.
Yep.
Or I didn't fill out the card because, I was walking around with a big leather duster and, hair down to here and big earrings. So I was either an opera singer, a magician, or, some crazy guy, but I would be the one they'd pull off the line and do a spot check on. So
yep.
I always filled out the card. They pulled me off, and anyway, I always had a big satchel full of money. But yeah, you could make a lot of, I made a lot of money back then doing that kind of work. Different now. Opera is taking an extreme hit, like everything, because of the economy. You get paid per performance. So now, and your fee is less. So if you're making, $6,000-$7,000 a performance, and you're doing 6 performances, which was the norm for me, back in the day, yeah, you're coming home with a lot of money after every gig, and it's impossible to keep, to not take those gigs. As they come at you, you're like, oh my God,
of course,
that's a lot of money to turn down. Man, I'm not turning that down. So you keep taking the work. You keep taking the work, and you're out there, and you're missing everything. You're missing every holiday, every birthday, everything with your family, and eventually you get to the point where your own family starts to develop, and your own kids start to come, and then you're like, okay, I've been out here for a long time, and that's kind of the way. I mean, I consider myself very fortunate that my opera career lasted as long as it did. I had an amazing time, and when I decided to kind of ramp it down a little bit, that's when I started, considering teaching, and I'd never thought about it before. I really never did. And I dabbled, here and there, a little bit in New York, a little bit here, a little bit there. And that's, how you kind of find me, out here back in Watertown, because, like I said, what's up to my family is still here. And I knew what it was like. I remembered when I was sitting here trying to think of where to go. So now, for those seniors, in high school, now they're putting together packages for Fredonia. They're asking for, 5 opera arias, 3 different languages, 3 contrasting styles. And I already knew before I came, there's nobody here.
Yeah.
Not in this area that can do that. So I wanted to become the go. Yeah, I became a big fish in a small pond, and that's kind of what I wanted to do, and come back and set it up. So far, it's been working well. I've been here for, 6-7 years or so. But like I said, the winters are really brutal.
Yeah.
I might be looking to, change venue at some point, but I'm not really sure yet.
Right.
I don't want to monopolize all this time talking about opera, because I know from your standpoint, from what I understand, you tend to talk more about the rock end of the industry than the opera end.
Yeah, it's kind of like actually more.
Because I'll talk all about that too. Look.
Yeah, it's kind of like sweet.
The CD just came out. I got it. It's on top of my piano.
A bunch of my buddies just went to see him the other night, and I think they played LA because they were all posting on Facebook video. Yeah, well, it's funny because I started the podcast just because I was getting bored with everything. Like where I live, it's pretty. I don't know if you've ever been to Morro Bay, but it's pretty lame. It's just a quiet little town. It's great. It's a beach town. There's just nothing here. It's about 3.5 hours to LA, 3.5 hours to San Francisco. I'm smack in the middle. And but it's funny. Almost all of them have been with opera singers on my podcast, which is funny. Andrew Owens, which I don't know if you know Andrew, but he's a young up-and-coming tenor that I've been watching for like 10 years, like since he started putting up stuff on YouTube. There's him, and then there's another guy named, they call him the Drunk Tenor, and I got him on here, and he sings at the Met. He just got off a thing singing at the Met this past winter, and he was the on-call guy for one of the operas there, and so I got him on, which is a goof because he's funny. He's got a channel called the Drunken Tenor, and he teaches you how to make different drinks. So I'm like, I'm gonna love this guy. We're gonna have a blast. So I had a blast with him, and then a couple of the other guys have been a couple rock guys, and then my former teacher Alex Cariotis, who studied with Pola and Raimondi. He went to Manus and studied with Dan Merrick, and so he's from that land. But he likes singing rock, and he's the lucky one. He's still got this hair down to here. He's still got he's the lucky guy. So so there was him, and then a couple other in the metal world. A good friend of mine is this guy Ralph from Steel Panther, which is like they're kind of like a spoof metal band, but they're real. They're really playing, really singing. So Ralph did it with me, so that was kind of cool. But getting back to La Monaco. What would you say, because I was getting into a little bit of the technique talk, what would you say are the principles, that without, because we can't go into depth with them all the time, but like the main principles he worked on? Some people say they work on, appoggio, and some people say, well, work on the lean of the larynx. Some people say like there's all these different little things that they say they really concentrate on. Was there something that he instilled in you that's very important for you to get out, when you're teaching? Yeah,
I would probably say, well, all those things that you said encompass altogether how I would answer that question. And that is that the reason I think Tom, and everyone, thinks that their teacher is a genius, but, Tommy clearly was. He left an amazing legacy of singers behind him. And I think the reason that his work was so genius was that he made singing physical. And by that, I mean, I'm not here to, discredit anybody, but I never understood anybody who taught, and there are a lot of teachers who did and still do teach by imagery. Like, okay, now when you sing this high note, envision a rainbow shooting out of your head. Can I swear on this thing?
Of course you can. You're fucking kidding me.
Or steam, shooting out of your ass, right? If you ever walk out in front of 2,000 people and you're nervous, guess what the first thing you forget is? Okay, wait, where's the rainbow supposed to shoot out of? I can't remember. Right, and you start singing, hoping you remember all this stuff, right? You can't, listen, this is just let me preface everything. This is all my opinion, okay? This will get all the haters off my back, so please,
fuck them.
All my opinion, okay? It's always only my opinion. Everybody, you all do whatever you want to do. Whatever works is fabulous. But here's why Tom worked. Because Tom made everything physical. And by that, I mean he made singing there's a physical understanding that no matter how nervous you were, no matter how much your hands were shaking, after all those years of training of where to put your jaw, how to breathe, how to shape your mouth, how to go right to the vibrato, all of this kind of thing. When you did that, you were only nervous for maybe the first 3 seconds until the first sound came out. And once you had that, you were like, okay, I got this. Let's go. Let's finish the opera. See, and that's what kept me from ever really having stage fright. And I felt bad for, even famous tenors. You read great, great singers on great singing, and there are a lot of them. And when you read about what they think about their own technique, sometimes I get the impression I'm like, oh my God, it's almost like you're praying and you're flying by the seat of your pants. By making the technique physical, it made it repeatable. Okay, that meant you could rely on it. That meant that no matter how you felt, no matter how sick you were, how tired you were, how scared, you were, might have been, how nervous you were, you walk out, you take the breath the way Tommy taught you, you stand the way he taught you, you drop your jaw the way he taught you, you show your teeth, flare your lips, go to the vibrato, do all the things that Tom taught you. And no matter how nervous you got, when those horns stopped, when the violins went la 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 la, and you're literally wetting yourself, you're pissing your pants, and all of a sudden, until you go, and then all of a sudden you're like, okay, I got this, I'm good. But it's that first couple of lines that you're like, oh my God, why did I pick this for a living? I want to die. I want to go. I should have been an herb farmer or something. Why am I doing this? And then all of a sudden it comes out. But that was Tom. If I could boil it all down into one thing, is that he made singing a very physical thing. There's a lot of people out there who buy into the myth that singing looks like this. Right? People that can't see what I'm doing, but I'm standing here holding my hands, smiling, right. Pretty, expecting Forza del Destino to come flying out of my throat, right? It doesn't work that way. I got a lot of young students who are like competitive swimmers, lacrosse players, right? And, they come in here and they're like, Alma del Core, Spirito della. I go, wait a minute. I go, let me ask you a question. You're a swimmer, right? You're a competitive swimmer? They're like, yeah. I'm like, when you jump in the lane and start swimming and do you swim casually? They're like, no, hell no. I said, do you swim nonchalantly? They're like, oh, hell no. I said, oh, so it's work. They're like, well, yeah, of course. Somehow this doesn't translate into the music world and into singing. It is work. There is nothing and again, my opinion, I'm gonna preface everything I say. This is my opinion. Take it for what it's worth. But there is nothing to me that feels natural about, especially opera singing. Right. And when I decided to go back after all these years and start dabbling in heavy metal singing again, there was nothing natural about that. And I want to segue into that if you've got another minute. Because
I absolutely do. I was gonna go from right before we segue into the rock and roll. Who are your, besides Jerry Hadley, because obviously you made that clear that you loved him. Who are some of your other favorite opera singers?
The one that I always went back to, believe it or not, I always went back to the source, and that was Caruso. I have everything Caruso ever recorded, starting from 1904 all the way until he died. There's a collection. It's this collection, because there's a lot of stuff out there.
Yeah, there's so many. I mean, as I'm getting into it, I have my favorites now, but I haven't bought everything yet. DiStefano's my guy right now that I'm listening to. He's like, I'm just like.
In my opinion, DiStefano is one of the most beautiful interpreters we ever had.
It's beautiful.
In fact, I believe, and I'm just, this is my own interpretation, but, listening to Jose Carreras, it's plain to me that he spent a lot of time listening to DiStefano.
There's a documentary on Carreras' life on YouTube that I found. It's a 3-part documentary on YouTube on Carreras, and it shows him he said he wanted to sing. He heard Mario Lanza on a TV show I think it was The Great Cruise, watching the movie The Great Cruise.
Yeah, I saw it.
And he says, I want to be a singer. And then it shows him, or you hear, there's a recording of him, Carreras, at 7 years old singing. You've got to go listen to it, because you just go, oh my God. No doubt he wasn't going to be amazing. And he does mention in that, I think DiStefano was the guy for him.
If you listen to him a lot, you can tell that the interpretation. You listen to all those DiStefano Callas recordings, and you hear some interpretation that is, it's second to none. This collection is the one where nobody screwed with the recordings. They didn't use some kind of weird African needle, for the recordings. It's not the Stockholm Soundstream process. Nobody did any screwing. They didn't add any vibrato. These are all original, and I've got them all from when he first started, to when he ended. I always go back to Caruso. Listen, I love them all, man. I love them all for different reasons. Delmonico for sheer power. Yeah. Obviously, you can't be an opera singer and not love Corelli, man, for his dashing looks and his friggin' ridiculous high notes.
And he was someone, God, he was such a barrel-chested dude too, so you knew that sound was going to come out of him anyway. But the sound was like Delmonico, just big, giant, like loud. I couldn't imagine us being like in a room with those guys, And
our contemporaries, I have nothing but praises to sing for them. I mean, I met and sang with Luciano Pavarotti. One of the reasons I sang so much in Los Angeles was because of Placido Domingo. When he took over the LA Music Center Opera, I was his cover for several operas until and I did all his rehearsals. I'm working my ass off. I'm singing Fanciulla and all this big heavy gun stuff. And Placido shows up at the final dress with an Adidas sweatsuit. Hello, everybody. Okay, listen, I go here. I sing the aria here. I sit down here. I go here. Okay, come on. Let's go eat. Craig, come on. Let's go. We go eat.
Amazing. I saw him do the baritone role in Don Carlo in Valencia this past winter.
Yeah.
I got to go see him.
One of the most amazing guys, incredible intellect, never forgets a name. And he couldn't have been nicer to me. He took me out to dinner with his family. I mean, these are guys that are so comfortable in their skin. And he's the reason why I sang so much in Los Angeles, because eventually they called me to replace him. He couldn't finish the run of, they were doing Fedora at the Chandler Pavilion. And he had, I don't know, somewhere else to go. So they called me. They were like, you want to come in and finish up for Placido? I'm like, are you kidding?
Amazing.
Yeah,
wow.
Let's do this. Last but not least, with the Lamonico technique, and that's, one of the reasons why guys like, the guy that I mentioned before, Steve Crater, who also lives in California, they find me. They find me on the internet. There's a lot of guys out there who talk about Tom, who claim to have been, I was with Tom the longest. I teach the Lamonico technique, and I'm not going there, okay? I'm just not going to go there.
You don't have to. I know who you're talking about, so you don't have to go there.
I will tell you this. I was with Tommy for over 13 years.
Wow.
Now, that's not straight. That means, 5 or 6, 5 in the shed, and then, coming back and forth from where I'm singing. I still drop in on Tom. I still come in for a tune-up. So throughout the course of my career, I don't know who else who can say that, first of all.
Yeah.
And second of all, there's not a lot of us out there who were trained by Tom, who went out and sang for that long. And number 3, who actually, teach this method of singing for those who want it. And that would be like guys like Steve Crater, who found me on the internet. And they're like, look, I want to study Lamonico. And, Tommy's, warm up and work never changed, not the whole time I was with him. And so for the guys that want to learn this, I obviously the internet and Skype FaceTime lessons are, the next generation of this kind of work for people who can't get here. And I do this for a lot of guys. That's Tommy was the biggest regret I have is that at the time period that I worked with Tom, no one had a cell phone. We didn't have cell phones back then. Okay.
Right.
So if you wanted to video something, you'd have to walk in with a VHS camera the size of a television camera.
Yep.
And nobody did that. And the biggest regret I have is that I should have videotaped like a dozen lessons with Tommy. A dozen. I got nothing. I have nothing.
I have all my lessons, like even back when there wasn't a lot of internet, when I was taking everything in person, I would record with a handheld recorder and just bring it in and record them, and I put them all in my iTunes. I mean, for everybody that I studied with, I still have them, and I still can go back and go, oh, remember that thing that he said? Now this is making sense, and I'll go back and I'll find that lesson from that one teacher. Luckily, my mind's pretty good. And I can go back and go, I remember someone saying something about this, So I think it's a great, I always tell all my students and my friends, whoever's taken, record it to have it. Yeah. Can you imagine having those would be great, for your teaching, you could show that, look, he showed me the same thing that I'm showing you. That's such a cool, that's great. All right. Well, so the rock and roll then.
All right. So here's what happened. So when I wrapped up, the opera singing full time, I started developing this, call it whatever you will. This is probably like my 3rd midlife crisis. Okay. I got a Harley, I got a Dodge Challenger out in the driveway, I got all the toys, and I start developing this, notion of, man, I would love to just one time get together with some heavy metal guys and bang out a set, a priest, maiden, right? And this idea, I don't know, it came full circle.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought after all those years of being an opera singer, I'm like, oh man, I'm going to be the best rock singer ever. Okay. So I come back, I get the guys together, and the truth is I sucked. Okay. And the reason that I did was because I didn't understand, just like there is a technique for everything under the sun. Up until that point, I really only understood one technique, Lamonico, and I didn't understand any other technique. And now this is going back a ways. I've been teaching now, for years, and in this area, if I only taught opera, I'd have, maybe 5 students instead of, the studio, being as full as it is now. So it's everything. It's opera, it's Broadway, it's Carrie Underwood, Taylor Swift, it's Adele, it's, and then I got a couple of rock guys, I got a couple of heavy metal guys, and you got to be able to demonstrate this stuff, okay? I got to be able to demonstrate everything. So I found out there was a great big hole in my voice, from, maybe, I could only open my chest voice so big, maybe it stopped at about A, and then I found that I could, start screaming again from, E, F sharp up, whoa! All that stuff worked fine. But the stuff in the middle I couldn't do. And it drove me insane. The guy and I give this guy props on the videos that I have on YouTube, and I still do. I've seen all these vocal academies, okay? I've seen them all on YouTube, okay? And I'm not going there. I'm not saying anything. I'm not going to mention anyone's name. These vocal academies are in California. They're in New York. I've watched all these guys. In my opinion, they know woefully little about real vocal technique. They know woefully little about the anatomy and how it works. All you got to do is stand there and watch them sing, and you'll know right away, they're doing everything wrong. But I will give props to the one guy who straightened this all out for me and reminded me that I had this down when I was in college. I simply forgot. And the guy that got me back on track again was Tony O'Hora.
Yeah. Okay? I know Tony really well. Really well.
And I still will give him all the credit for me understanding everything that I understand today about rock singing. He corresponded with me. He watched a lot of, I sent him recordings, he helped me out with this. And the correspondence was funny. He's like, Craig, you're an international opera singer. You're singing all over the world. What the hell are you doing trying to figure out, a touch of evil from Judas Priest? I said, because I can't. I need to be able to figure this out. I need to. And I was relentless. I wouldn't stop until I understood it. And Tony was the guy that, brought me back down and led me through the path. And if, quite frankly, if you simply have the patience to sit down and watch what he does in the videos, only my opinion, I don't want any feedback about any of this. I really don't. I don't care. I don't care what you have to say. I'm not going to get into an argument with you about what's head voice, what's falsetto, what's chest voice. I know what it is. So, I don't need to talk. I don't want to get into this about anybody. But I couldn't figure out how to balance this out up in the top. And Tony was the guy that got me there. And quite frankly, if you just simply have the patience to sit down and watch all of his videos, and you're smart and you understand how the anatomy works and are patient, you'll figure this out.
Let me ask you, for you, because I know, I know where Tony's coming from because I've known him for years. And of course, we've talked back and forth about vocal technique for years, me and him, which is really cool. And what do you find so much different? And I'll say, and I'll put it in a way that you might understand. What do you find so much in between the underlying technique that you have, Lamonico's technique, okay, and then say the more the mixier stuff that we do in the rock and rolls type stuff? Do you just find that, just to me, because I kind of warm up in an operatic sense, that's what I always kind of try and do, I know I try to go deeper. I make sure my larynx is rise. I make sure everything's like, a little bit louder, a little bit stronger. But then when I go sing, I just kind of thin it out. I just kind of make just thin it out. And it's pretty, this kind of a thing. And then, but I'm still underneath that little whine is still this technique, the other technique, I guess. Would you say it's similar for you? Because now you're coming to that. You learned all this stuff again now. So it's like, how would you put it in sense, like together?
Well, here's what's similar to me. First of all, the breathing is the same.
Right.
Okay. Sometimes I find myself using more appoggio, trying to sing friggin' Iron Maiden, than I did, Carmen. Okay. So the breathing's the same. I don't care. You don't have to agree with me. It's the same. It's the same across the board. The open jaw is the same in order to stabilize your larynx. Now, in the opera, we're always using dark vowels. It's always, ah or ooh, and my mouth is always looking like this. And I'm sorry that viewers can't see this. Right. In rock, everything modifies to ah. Watch Jeff Tate from Queensryche sing something. But the amazing thing is, his lips are always forward, his jaw is always open because somebody taught him, I don't believe in love. And all of a sudden, you see his lips come forward, his teeth are out all the time, and he's stabilizing his larynx. But the answer to your question is, the breathing's the same. Gigantic jaw opening is the same, only in a different shape. But last but not least, and probably most important, volume. Volume. It took me years to understand this. And why? Because of this. It's a very simple thing. This is microphone singing, okay? Why in God's name would you ever, unless you're, a new, 20-year-old, like I was, working with testosterone and attitude, why in God's name would you ever scream into a microphone? The drum kit's 3 feet behind me. Okay, you ever stand in front of a live drum kit and a heavy metal band? Okay, 2 Marshall stacks on either side of me. Really? Do I really need to hear anything they're doing? The answer is no, I don't. In fact, what really changed my life was using in-ear monitors and a belt pack. And I tell the sound man, only feed me my vocal signal.
I do the same thing.
I don't want to hear anyone else. I don't need to. In fact, Jesus Christ, now I got, besides hearing me, I've got hearing protection. Yeah. So it's volume. And this is the other thing that Tony teaches. If you're going to use a lot of volume, it's the laws of physics. You're going to lose upper register range. And if you're going to open your chest voice up, he's the first one to say it. You better learn how to do it softly in chest voice before you even think of adding any real weight or any real vocal color or even the words. Take all the words out. Work on na if you have to.
Right.
But working the exercises he taught me, opening up my chest voice was the Antichrist compared to working in Tom LaMonaco's studio, because Tom was dark, was covered, was sing as dark as you can, until you wet yourself. Okay, I mean I'm joking, but you get the idea.
Yeah.
Okay, this is completely different. Go on YouTube, and this is something we didn't have access to before, but somebody snuck out tapes, and you've seen them probably already. David Lee Roth in the recording studio. Okay, somebody snuck out just the vocal parts.
Yep.
Okay, you hear the headphones, and you hear Running with the Devil leaking out of the headphones, and he's in the studio, and he's going, oh yeah, yeah, oh, yeah, right? He's doing all this stuff, but it's not loud. I mean, look at me. I'm sitting on the piano bench talking to you. I didn't even take a breath for that. And then he sings nice and easy. Yeah. I live my life like there's no tomorrow, and all I got. I never understood that. Yeah. I never got that concept.
I mean, that's
I'd watch these guys, and I'd say to myself, how the hell are these guys screaming 3 hours at a pop on stage? And the answer is they're not.
Yeah, well, that's when I do like AC/DC or any of the Chris Cornell type stuff, everyone thinks it's loud. But when you stand next to me, you go, oh, shit, it's just, Back in Black! I hit the sack! It's like not loud at all.
That's exactly right. It's not the character of the sound. It's strictly the volume. Nobody sang loud. You ever watch the hearing aid video?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I mean, I've watched probably 100,000 times.
Paul Sciortino's part is my favorite part.
My favorite part.
Which is yours?
What's your favorite part?
Mine was the Paul Sciortino parts.
Oh yeah, those are great. He's like, "We can be strong, we a Firestone." Dean Martin in it there.
No, when Paul Sciortino,
right? But
Paul Sciortino sings that, and we all want to touch the rainbow. That part.
Yeah.
That guy.
Real fast vibrato.
Oh, super fast.
Real fast, but all the way up, and he got it all. The point is, watching the singer part of that, you finally get to hear guys singing without all the stuff behind them.
Right.
It's completely misunderstood. I remember when Running with the Devil album came out, and when I first heard it, I went, oh my God, listen to this guy. And we had never heard David Lee Roth before.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, listen to this guy screaming. It's friggin' amazing. Well, you hear, but when you watch these guys in the studio,
right.
Ronnie Dio, kind of the same thing. Now, Ronnie Dio was like Ronnie Dio, Rob Halford,
Dickinson,
and Dickinson these guys are all my heroes, my friggin' heroes. I would give anything to have a beer and talk to them all for about 15 minutes. I came this close to meeting Halford because he had a house in Tucson, in Arizona, where I was singing. But when I was singing in the opera that month, he was away in Europe recording something. But going back to what O'Hora taught me, is it's volume, volume, volume. Make all the character you want to, but first take all the character out, take the words out, compress the volume, compress, compress, compress. You can scream all you want to. You think you're going to compete with a Marshall stack and a live drum kit? Really?
Yeah.
It's not going to make any difference. So you make the sound. You gotta trust your sound man to get your levels balanced out. And once I learned that, I now can open up my chest voice, which would make Tommy completely lose his mind. But on most really good days, all the way up to, here's middle C, here's this C, C sharp, D, E flat, about E natural on arpeggio work, and then it usually flips around this high F, and then it goes into a high mix. But by that point, you're mixing so bright that nobody can tell if you're in chest or mix anymore.
Right.
Okay, and I see all this nonsense on YouTube about even people commenting on my videos. Oh well, you're not singing like Dickinson because Dickinson sings this all in chest voice.
Yeah, I read that.
No, he doesn't.
Right.
Yeah, it's a mix. It's probably maybe a better mix than mine, okay? But it's a really friggin' good mix. You can hear this all the time. When things like oh my God, there was one oh man, I can't remember the song it was on just the other night. And I said to who was with him, I was like, listen to that. And you hear how he mixes the top, but the top is mixed, and you can hear him definitely, shift and change registers. But people, they're completely misinformed about what is falsetto, what is mixed voice, what's chest voice. This is what my work with, my limited work with Tony O'Hora straightened out with me. And like I said, I credit him for all of my understanding in anything that I can do. And now, I dabble. There's a group I play with locally. It's called Underworld. We go out and we do 2 hours of, Maiden, Priest, Sabbath, Queensryche. I'm singing through all this stuff.
Nice.
And I'm still working in the studio, sometimes 8 hours a day. And I'm in here trying, I have to demonstrate chest voice. I got to demonstrate falsetto for guys. I got to demonstrate, soprano head voice.
So when you say,
I got to demonstrate, heavy.
When you say in the technique that you learned with Tony, going, you opening up your chest voice, going up that high, like I wouldn't ask you to go that high, but what would be opening up your chest voice say to like just like an A flat or an A? What would that sound like? Is it?
Go back to the he teaches at arpeggio. So well, that's where he starts. If you want to do that, A natural, for example. That's where Tony starts with his exercise. He's like na 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 na. There, that was all chest voice, and that was to A. Na 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 na. That's chest voice.
Right. Yeah.
That is not na na na.
No.
That's mixed. That's mixed voice.
It's funny. It's because that's funny.
So
yeah, because that's how I sang for years, and now I just do it a little bit different. But that's how I sang. I'll send you some clips of me doing like Still the Night and stuff like that, so you could see. But like that's kind of how I sang for years. But as I got older, it seemed to not work as well anymore, and I had to learn something else about the voice. Something happened, it was recently, and I was like, okay, this isn't going to work anymore. I have to learn something else. But I understand.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't chest out, even one half step higher to B flat. Everything was eliminated. So, I mean, Sign of the Southern Cross,
Yep.
Ronnie Dio. I couldn't sing it. I had to modify it and keep taking the low note until, O'Hara taught me this stuff. Na, 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 na. And then you take the words away. Na, 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 na. And put it back in. Sign of the Southern Cross. And then put the grit back in. Sign of the Southern Cross.
Right.
And there's the complete product, but it's all based on going na 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 na. It's like you already said, it's a thinned out sound, but it is still chest voice. That is the key. It's not mixed.
Yeah, that's.
I don't mix anything live until I get past like C or C sharp or D. Like if we had to do Desert Plains live, I don't think in a 3-hour set I'd probably mix this C. I don't think I'd sing it chested out like Halford did back in the day.
Yeah.
Because it's just too damn hard. Jeff Tate, forget it. I mean, there's most of his stuff I can't sing.
Yeah.
And there are some guys that are outside the envelope of what's normal, and that's why Jeff Tate's worth $40 million as we sit here. Yeah. And I'm teaching in Watertown, New York.
Yeah, but he didn't get to sing at La Scala, so there's that.
Well, I did indeed.
Let me see.
But yeah, that's.
Is there any singers in the rock world? Because you told me who you liked. Is there any ones that? Well, you kind of just said Tate. Kind of it gets rough a little bit. But is there any singers you like? Every other a couple of the guys I've interviewed, I'd say who was someone like, because we're all like cover band singers and stuff. We sing corporate bands. So I'd be like, who's someone that gives you a problem? Like to my buddy Ralph, and Ralph's like, Steve Perry, I won't go near it.
Well, hell, I don't know many guys who would go near that. It's the voices that are problematic in not only going really, really high, but also problematic in that they sound so unique that no matter how well you sing, everyone's going to compare you.
Of course.
I don't know that I would sing an Ozzy. I don't think I'd sing an Ozzy song live because nobody sounds like Ozzy. It's just too damn unique.
Yeah. It's too damn Ozzy.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just too damn unique. I can sing it. I can sing pretty much everything he sings.
Yeah.
But it just won't sound like that. It won't sound like that. So I stick with guys I can imitate better than others. So I'll stick with Dio. I'll stick with some Dickinson. Some is so high that it's problematic and you don't want to sing it live because you got 3 more hours to go. See, that's the key. The key is longevity in the set that night. Put me in the studio alone. I was with a student the other day, and I sang Devil's Child for him from beginning to end, full grit, full tilt, all the way through. And the guy was like, "Holy shit, man!" I go, "Yeah, but you know what? If I ever sang that live, I'd be like, thank you, good night. I'd be done."
Right.
Because at that point, I don't think I'd be able to go from that grit and then go back and sing Queensryche.
So so basically, you would say like the breathing, the breathing is what the breathing is pretty much the same for you. You use your breathing technique that you learned from the beginning for the rock and roll technique.
Definitely.
Cool.
Definitely. And the higher I go, the more I'm leaning on that appoggio, leaning down and out, pushing on it for all I'm worth. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure the other rock singers are too. I mean, I've seen, a lot of guys out there, their faces are turning red. I know they're leaning, like a son of a bitch, but it's either get the note or not.
Right.
So
excellent.
That's been my whole journey from
that's cool, man.
Young heavy metal into opera and then back, to metal again, because now I don't have to care. I mean, I only have to demonstrate opera in short, controlled bursts, but I don't have to sing a 3-hour opera. So now I dabble in whatever I want to. I feel like going out and singing a set of metal with the boys.
Yeah. I
go do it.
Oh, that's cool, man. Dude, this has been a pleasure. I really, really, I appreciate you doing this. It was so funny, like, again, waking up this morning just going, God, I'd really like to do a podcast today. And then in my email, in my inbox is a message from Steve. So thanks, Steve Crater out there.
Well,
thank you for setting this up. I'm really happy.
By the way, he's tearing it up. I mean, he's studying the Lamonico technique, with a Lamonico trained teacher. Me and Steve is burning it up out there. So yeah, he's doing a great job.
He said he's really excited.
I hope I didn't talk your ear.
Not at all.
I hope I didn't talk your ear or steer you into the direction you don't want to go. But I really enjoy doing this, and so too few people ever really ask me, it's either about metal or it's about opera, but never about the whole journey. So
yeah, I think it's important, man. We all come from different. I was a guitar player. I never knew I was going to be a singer. I knew I wanted to be, but I just didn't think I could ever do it. And then lo and behold, I do it for as my career for my adult life. So it's like you never know what's going to happen. I guess you know what I mean. I never knew I'd get into opera. Like, I never knew that was going to happen. And boom, here I am. Like, when my wife comes home from work, she says, you're listening to that again.
That's great.
Yeah. So anyway, man, well, thank you so much. Stay on. I'm going to hang up this thing, but stay on for a second. But so everybody, that was Real Singers on Singing number, 7 or 8. And this is with Craig. And say your last name again? Craig Sirianni, right? Sirianni. And look him up on. You can look him up on YouTube. He's got a YouTube page under his name, and he's also got a website that I saw today. And it's just under your name, right? That's what it is, Craig Sirianni.
CraigSirianni.com.
Excellent. Cool, man. All right, hold on here. I'm going to hang this up. See you, everybody. Peace.
They've haunted my every move, every open hand and a push and shove.